Before we get started, I just want to give you a little bit of background on myself and my experience with this subject. So, I was caught in a loop of toxic relationships for as long as I can remember. Just, you know, all of the horrible things that you can think of: cheating, abuse, all of it. For years and years and years, then I just felt like no matter what I did, I just kept attracting the same person. It was like a different face, but the inside was the same. And I just started asking myself, the common denominator is me because, I must be doing something wrong if these are the kind of people that I'm attracting. And I was. I wasn't aware of what I was doing, but I knew that something was wrong, and it made me go into a deep dive of trying to heal my trauma and learn how to love myself. And, you know, I'm going to tell you things today that I wish somebody had told me back then, because I know that a lot of people, women struggle with this, and I just want to save you some heartache. So hopefully you will heed my advice and this will help you. So the first thing I want to talk about is self-love. And this is something that we hear about a lot, Everybody talks about it. But I didn't understand what it was. What does it mean? What does it look like? Because I feel that it's somewhat of an arbitrary concept, especially if you're not familiar with it. So I think that my definition of self-love really boils down to what I allow myself to be treated like. So it's not like I wake up every day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm the best thing in the world. I'm so beautiful, so hot, so perfect. I deserve everything in this world. And, some days I do feel like that, but some days I don't. And that's okay. You don't have to feel that way, as long as you know when to say, I will not accept this. I think there's so many forms of self-love, but I think as it pertains to relationships, this is my definition of it. So it's about not tolerating any behavior that doesn't honor you as a human being. You have to have really strong boundaries in order to have your dream partner, in order to attract your dream partner. Because I used to be, oh my gosh, I'm actually disgusted by the way that I used to behave in relationships. I used to be like, I'm so loyal that no matter what you do, you can treat me however you want. You can give me as little love as you want, and I will stay here. I'm not going to leave you because I'm so loyal and I'm so good, and nobody else is going to love you the way that I'm going to love you, and that's why you should be with me. And I wore it like a badge of honor. And honestly, if I could go back and slap the shit out of myself, I would, because honestly, I was such a fucking clown. I was such a fucking clown, right? Because I thought, I don't know. I guess if I had to explain it, I wanted to make myself as easy to love as possible. Really, just I didn't want to require a lot. I didn't want to require a lot of attention. I didn't want to require a lot of love because I felt like I was being needy, and those things would drive the person away. So I tried to suppress all of my needs and just be like, you know, give me the bare minimum. That's all I require. You don't have to do a lot. Just give me the bare minimum. And honestly, that is the biggest mistake that you can make. Energy is currency. Think about it. Think about Prada. Does Prada ever go on sale? No, absolutely not. So why are you putting yourself on sale? Why are you putting yourself on discount? Because think about it this way. How do we treat things that are cheap? How do we treat things that didn't take a lot of effort to earn? They're disposable, they're replaceable, we discard them with ease, we don't take care of them. And that's what you're doing when you sell yourself short. You're putting yourself on discount. You're making yourself accessible to everyone. How do we treat luxury goods? We treat them with care. We treat them with respect. We know that they're valuable. You know what I mean? And the thing is, you decide how valuable you are. Because, all of the stuff that just came out with the tariffs and the taxes with the US and China basically just said, fuck you, we're going to expose the whole system, and if you want to get a Louis Vuitton bag for $30, here it is, right? Because you're not actually paying for something, for a product that's very much like, if you're buying a Prada or Chanel or Gucci, whatever, the quality isn't actually that different than if you were to get something similar. What you're paying for is the name, you're paying for the brand. And what is the brand? It's just an idea. And who decided that? The brand. And you have the power to do the same. You have the power to decide that you don't want to be Forever 21 anymore. You want to be Chanel. And not everybody can have you. And if somebody wants you, they're going to have to pay up. Honestly, the way that I did it kind of subconsciously, because I just got so sick and tired of being mistreated that I just lost my patience for it. I was broken to the point where I had no choice but to value myself because nobody else would. That's what it took for me. And it took me just simply deciding that I wanted better and I deserved better. That's really what it came down to. And you can do the same. Something really important that you have to address is your trauma. Trauma isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal. Because until you get to the root of it and fix the issue, you're never going to be able to have a healthy relationship, because there's always going to be these things that are getting in the way. So you need to address that. And I would suggest, reading books on trauma, finding what your triggers are, doing therapy. If you have, really deeply rooted trauma, you probably want to explore that in a safe place with a professional. If you've ever dealt with substance abuse or eating disorders, that, especially if you're a woman, that might be because of childhood trauma. And I've been reading a book called Mother Hunger that talks about this. It essentially talks about the relationship that you had with your mom and how important it is to the developmental health of a child. And if you didn't have a good relationship as a kid, if you weren't taken care of the way that you needed to be taken care of, that's going to affect you later in life. So I would really recommend reading Mother Hunger if you feel like that resonates with you. Something that I want to say to you, because a lot of the times we don't get an apology, right, from the people that hurt us, especially when we were kids. Our parents might not take responsibility for what they did, and a lot of the time it's not even that they were bad people or that they didn't love you. They might have been overwhelmed and over their heads, struggling with their own problems, or just lacking the emotional capacity to give you what you needed, because people can only give you what they have. And if no one ever gave them those things as children, they're likely not going to be able to give them to you. And you know, I really don't want to demonize parents, because at the end of the day, they're just humans, they're people, and I've learned this more and more as I've gotten older. I think I was a really angry kid and I made a lot of bad decisions because my upbringing wasn't ideal, but I've I've learned how to have compassion and forgiveness for my parents. And I'm not saying that every relationship can be mended. Sometimes the damage is irreparable, and that's okay. It's not okay, but it's okay. You can still heal even if you don't have that closure. And I just wanted to say that you deserved better, because you might not hear that. You might not hear that from the person that you need to hear that, but despite the circumstances, you deserved better. Every child deserves to be treated with love and respect, deserves care and attention and love above all. And if you didn't get that, it has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with the other person and nothing to do with you, because you are inherently worthy just by being alive. Every human being deserves love and respect. Granted, of course, that you're a decent person. You can't go around hurting people and expect to be treated with kindness. I believe that you get what you put out, and if you're constantly putting out negativity, then that's what you're going to receive in return, okay? So something else that I wanted to talk about that's really important is learning how to be alone. Because if you don't know how to be alone, you're going to keep people in your life who really don't belong there for the sake of not being alone. And that is really dangerous, because being surrounded by toxic people is so much worse than being by yourself. Okay? I used to be that way. I used to not be able to tolerate my own company, to tolerate being alone with my thoughts. That was the most terrifying thing I could think of. And you know what? Eventually, I became so comfortable with myself, so happy with myself, that I preferred being in my own company. I still do. I love my alone time. It doesn't matter. I can go days without speaking to someone and I will be completely fine, because I'm just, living my best life. I'm watching my favorite shows. I'm eating ice cream. I'm doing Pilates. I'm, you know, doing skincare, listening to music, journaling, drawing, making pottery, crocheting. I have so many things that I love doing, genuinely love doing. And, you need to find those things too. Doing those things is what's going to help you, want to be with yourself, right? And once you learn how to be with yourself, you'll stop the threshold of what you're willing to accept from another person rises significantly, because you're no longer trying to fill this minimum effort requirement of presence. Basically, you're trading your peace for presence, for somebody else's presence, and a lot of the time that presence isn't even good for you. You're just doing it because you don't want to be alone, right? And that brings me to the next point of stop being so desperate for love. Okay? Learning how to be alone is the first step. But also, you have to realize that romantic love isn't the only kind of love in the world. There are so many kinds of love. The love that you have for your family, the love that you have for your friends, the love that you have for your pets, right? And you can be happy, just by having these things. I think Jay Shetty said that people have a tendency to overvalue romantic love and undervalue other types of love. And that hit me so hard, because I remember that I had to move back in with my parents after COVID because my career was kind of in the gutter and I had no money, and I had to go live with my parents. And that was a really awful time for me. It did mean that I ended a long-term relationship, and I kind of lost all of my friends, and I felt like I was failing. I felt horrible about myself, and it was really hard. And I think the worst part for me was feeling like I would never find love again, because my parents lived in this, tiny town where I grew up, and I'd never dated anyone from there, and I felt like I never would, because it's just a lot of small-minded people, unfortunately, that I really felt like I didn't vibe with. And I think that really forced me to, learn how to appreciate my parents most of all, and the love that they were giving me. And that made me feel, I don't know, like it wasn't the same. Obviously, I still felt the desire to have romantic love in my life, but it didn't hurt as much because I still felt loved in other ways. You know what I mean? And I feel like that really allowed me to let go of this like desperation for another person. And funnily enough, it was when I stopped being desperate that I met my fiance, who I've been happily with for over 3 years, and we are getting married next month. And we met in the most unlikely of circumstances. He was there on deployment. He was in the Air Force in my hometown, and we met 3 days before he was supposed to leave. And it was just a really random circumstance that I would have never, ever, ever. I never thought that that was going to happen. I never thought that I was going to meet someone in my hometown. So I had kind of detached from that need, from that idea. I'd kind of just accepted that I was going to be on my own for a while. And that ended up being, I think, what drew love to me in the first place. And you really do need to have strong boundaries, not just in the beginning, but all throughout the relationship. I still have really strong boundaries. So, for example, one of my boundaries, I know it sounds silly, but I don't like to cook bacon in my house because it stinks up the whole house. It clings to my clothes and my hair, and I just can't stand smelling like bacon. And I had said this to my fiance, and then like a month later, he brought home some bacon. And I cook for him every day, 3 times a day. But that day, he made his own breakfast because I don't want to touch bacon. And you have to keep doing this. You have to keep doing this for yourself forever. That brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about was don't try to change people. Take them at face value. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Because over romanticizing potential is a trauma response. So if you keep seeing the best in people, if you keep seeing only what they're capable of and not what they are, not what they're giving you, you're actually fucking yourself over big time. Because let me save you the heartache, they're not going to change ever. People don't change until they want to change. They're not going to change for you. They're only going to change for themselves. And honestly, don't give people second chances. Hear me out. I think that everybody is human. We all make mistakes. And that is understandable. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, for me, 2 things that I will never accept are cheating and lying. Because cheating is not a mistake. Okay? Cheating is not a mistake. Cheating is a character flaw. And so is lying. Those are choices. They're not mistakes. Because I have never forgiven someone for either of those things and had them not do it again. It's just who they are. If they don't have morals, that's just who that person is. That's just their belief system, and that's not going to change. That's how they grew up, that's what they were taught, and more likely than not, that's just how that person is going to be for the rest of their lives. Okay, so don't waste your time. Another thing is, make sure that you have a support system outside of your relationship, because things go wrong. You have arguments, you have fights, even in the healthiest relationships. That doesn't ever go away. And you need to be able to have support from someone other than your partner in those times. And this is a little bit tricky because I don't want those people to be your parents or really, really close friends, because I feel like those people aren't able to see things from a non-biased perspective, because they care about you so much that it doesn't matter if you're in the wrong, it almost doesn't matter. They love you so much and they don't want to see you get hurt that they're always going to let their feelings and their love for you cloud their judgment. So you want to get support from, you know, people who you trust that you know aren't going to judge you and are going to be able to give you non-biased advice. And if you don't have anyone in your life like that, you can always join an online support group, or therapy, is probably your best bet. But if worse comes to worse, honestly, talk to ChatGPT because it gives some pretty sound advice. And another thing is, don't take advice from people who you wouldn't switch places with, okay? So don't take advice from your single friend who can't stay in a relationship longer than a month, okay? Because that's not your goal. That's not what you want. You want something lasting. You want someone who can be your mentor, someone who's gonna give you sound advice, who actually made a huge difference in shifting my perspective was my best friend, because she met her husband in high school. We were 16 or 17, and they got married when they were like 20, and now they're in their 30s and they're still happily married. So, fuck yeah, I took advice from her because that's what I wanted. That's where I wanted to be. So don't take advice from someone who you wouldn't switch places with. Another thing is, don't ignore your intuition. If you're in a situation and something feels off, more likely than not, something is off. You're not being crazy. If you feel like, if you don't feel like you trust someone, or if you feel like they're being sketchy, listen to that. Don't just try to dismiss it as paranoia, because your body is so smart and your intuition is so strong. It's so powerful. It's always going to lead you to the right place. So listen to that. Do not ignore it. Okay? Oh, and one last thing I forgot to say in regards to being alone. If you don't have any family, if you don't have any friends, get a pet, adopt a dog, adopt a cat. It was just me and my dog for years when I was living in LA. It was just me and her, against the world. And you have no idea how loved and supported and just accompanied I felt by this little dog. Dogs are they're so magical, honestly. They're just, or pets in general, they're just like the purest forms of love. They will show you loyalty and affection unconditionally. It's a very powerful connection that we have to animals, and I think if you're feeling lonely, you could really benefit from that. But anyway, I feel like I've been talking forever, so I'm just gonna leave you guys with this. I really hope that it helped. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this resonated with you. I hope that some of this did. I hope that, again, I can save you some heartache. I really wish that someone had said all of these things to me when I was younger, because, I'm pretty stubborn. I don't know if I would have listened. I think so many things in life are just, you have to live and learn, because I'm sure that people did say some of these things to me, but I didn't understand them. I understood them intellectually, but the ideas weren't in my bones like they are now, you know? But I also believe that you receive information when you're ready for it. So I think that if you found this video, you probably are ready to receive these ideas and put them into practice and hopefully start shifting into a better place in your life. I truly wish you the best, and I'll see you next time. Bye.